for Calgary's Philharmonic Orchestra. Definitely not your parents' symphony. The woman who has been at the helm since 2006 is today's CEO. I am pleased to welcome Ann-Lewis-Luppino to our CEO series. Hello, Ann.
Hi there.
I love grabbing the little bits because I think a lot of people who haven't been to the CPO in a long time may not have realized how much you have changed.
Well, today we're the classical giants, we're the rock and roll hits, we're the family favorites, and it's a little bit of music for all ages and tastes.
We're going to find out a lot more about the CPO, but first of all, we have to find out about the CEO. Let's start off with where it all began. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Ontario, in a small kind of a historic village, actually, Ancaster, Ontario. It's one of the most beautiful places, fairly close to Hamilton.
What kind of a kid were you?
Same kind of adult I am now, strong-headed and still stubborn, and always had the attitude, I can do that.
Did you play any musical instruments?
I didn't. My father was the artist and the musician, and my siblings, we all inherited the artistic side, but none of us can play an instrument or probably hum. And one of my greatest fears is at the orchestra, one of our musicians, Michael Hope, always says, I can't believe you can't sing. Can you just hum? And I'll listen. And I go, oh, that would be my nightmare.
Not a great hummer either. Who would you consider a major influence in your life, especially in the early years?
Well, that would be my mother, and she still is at 93. She still has strong opinions. But my mother was the logical, the practical. She should have been an engineer. She could look at anything and take it apart, whether it was mechanical or electrical, and fix it and repair it. And she came with an attitude of just naturally, you're smart and you can do it. You can do it. But never pushed at the same time.
What did you do after high school in Ancaster?
When I went to school, the high school consultants, they would tell you, your choices basically are you could be a secretary, you could be a nurse, you could be an airline stewardess, or you could be a teacher. Well, I was too short and didn't have perfect sight for the airline, and I wasn't a great typist, and I really didn't like the idea of being a nurse, so I became a teacher.
So, default, you went into teaching. Did you stay in Ontario for your post-secondary education then?
I did, at McMaster University, and then I ended up teaching, almost in the same, town that I grew up in. And I think I was there for about 4 years, and I learned pretty early that I wasn't growing within the position. I loved teaching the children, but it didn't help me evolve at all, and my vocabulary was becoming more limited and limited. I could hardly talk to another adult. So I learned, it was time to make a change.
And it wasn't a matter of just changing, maybe I should try junior high or high school for a larger vocabulary?
No, I went west when Calgary was in maybe one of its first booms. I went west as a young woman and landed in Calgary, and I thought, well, I'll just try something again. Mother says, just try something. And I ended up getting a 3-month position with Parks Canada.
So you were using your education background and being able to be out in the outdoors. Is that sort of what the job was for those 3 months?
It was mostly about working with the visitor kind of services for the parks. So that would be everything from the entrance fees into the gates to competitive sports in the mountains, which of course we're looking today at Olympics, to the backcountry trails, the signage from the highway to the backcountry, to the hot springs pools, and anything to do with visitors, the information. And I had a lot of freedom in that position. And I also was probably about one of the very few women working in a very male-dominated world. And that taught me a few things, too.
Did you stay beyond the 3 months?
I did. It evolved to about 10 years, 12 years in Calgary. And
with Parks Canada?
With Parks Canada. And then I met my husband, actually my late husband, I'll explain that, but met my husband and we moved to Winnipeg. And actually that's where I was introduced more to the arts, because Winnipeg is a really vibrant downtown art scene, from the symphony and the ballet and the theater and the museum there. So it just got me really connected. I came back to Calgary and took some classes here, but that's a really great story too, because at my class I met a young woman who was in the class with me, and she said, Ann, I'm moving to Boston and you've just come in. I have a great friend named Golda Elliott. Would you like to meet her? She should be your friend as I'm leaving. So she introduced me to her friend who became mine, Golda. I had no idea at the time that Golda was the chair of Alberta Ballet. So she got me involved.
She's got a volunteer opportunity for you.
And I started just, doing some things. And then I helped with a golf tournament. And she says, well, we need some things. So I went and found some cars and merchandise. And she goes, oh, okay. So now how would you like to be the chair of a big fundraising gala they had? And that led to, and that's where Calgary, I give credit to, someone who's just come in. It led to being an invitation to join the board, actually.
We all learn from our past mistakes. Is there a challenge in your career that you dealt with and learned from that you remember?
Oh, well, I know I've made lots of mistakes, and that's probably where you learn more about how to do something, better or right or the next time. I don't think I've made any real daunting mistakes. I think working in a not-for-profit, it's not so much about making a mistake, it's more about missing an opportunity.
I want to go back, though, to introducing the orchestra to a younger audience. You've got a great program that I've read about, musical camps for kids. And what is that all about?
We take ensembles of musicians, that might be 2, 3, or 4, out to schools, senior centers, and now to social service agencies. And individuals or corporations are contributing to a fund that allows us to go out and do that. And these experiences are about an hour long. Most recently before Christmas, I joined them, went to the Mustard Seed and went to the women's shelter. It was pretty special to see, these little children who wouldn't, put their head in the room until the music got going, and then they started to dance, and it was pretty heartwarming.
This isn't fair. I've only got about a minute, but I want to know from you, Anne, why you think the CPO is an important part of Calgary's cultural scene.
Oh, it absolutely brings a vibrancy to the community and feeds our souls, really. It would be a pretty quiet, dull life if we had just, great roads, great buildings, and wonderful places to work. It just brings an element that I think just enriches our lives. And, when I sit in the concert hall, I'm not thinking of work. It allows me to go to a place that, for a moment relaxes me.
And that's the other good thing, the Rush Hour series. So many different programs. And thank you so much for hanging out with me this afternoon. Ann-Lewis-Luppino, President and CEO of the CPO.